Few things hurt more than being passed over by somebody else. Whether it was not getting picked for the team on the playground or being cut from the team after tryouts. Perhaps it was giving a really fine audition and then not being called back, or maybe just waiting for the phone call or the text from the girl you met at the bar last week, only to find out that it was your buddy that got the call. Hollywood has typified, stylized this experience with a scene that's sort of stock that we all know. Our hero, whoever he or she is in the foreground, and they see the one whom they want to talk to in the background. They start waving and gesticulating and hollering, and as they come in for the embrace, they realize that the person that the other is talking to is directly behind them. Most of us have had that experience, and it's one of the most painful experiences we can have, because if you ask somebody out and they simply say no, then at least you merited a response. If you applied for a job and you didn't get it, but they call you in to explain why, at least you merited an explanation. But to be passed over for another, to the exclusion of even acknowledging your existence, that's about as stinging as it gets in everyday life. Today, it looks like Jesus is picking teams at the end of days. 2 men in the field, 2 women at the mill. One will be taken, and one will be left. But what about the poor guy who gets left behind? What about the woman still grinding away at the mill? How are they supposed to feel? Some people get caught up with the special effects of the story, as though somehow it matters whether or not the person who's taken disappears or floats up in the air. Despite the fact that Christians have read this passage for 2,000 years, and people have talked about a rapture for less than 200, it seems that Jesus is himself less concerned about the special effects and more concerned about what the people were doing when they were taken. She at the mill, he in the field, perhaps us in our cubicle or at the store. Where will we be when the Lord comes again? It's not about the rapture. It's about being enraptured, always having an eye on the person of the Lord, so that you can recognize him when he comes. The accent which Jesus gives is on the abruptness of the coming, like a thief in the night, one whom we would not otherwise know. Jesus is cautioning us against a day-to-day sort of mentality, a business-as-usual way of living life. But there is no business as usual in the Christian life. There are simply the things we do each day, which should be done with attentiveness and devotion. John Mellencamp says, life goes on even after the thrill of living is gone. And while it's true that life isn't always thrilling, it's always powerfully meaningful. Whether it's scrubbing the floor or doing the dishes or putting your kids to bed or watching a ball game. These things have enormous and eternal importance because they can be a means to the end of discovering life forever with God. The most menial of tasks can have the most meaning of all. And so, what this holy season calls us to, what this reading calls us to, what the Lord himself calls us to today is attentiveness, devotion, meaningful living, so that when he does come, we should be ready, waiting, and raring to go.